everybody, this is Parker with Magnum Bikes, and today we're going to be going over how to remove the wheels from your bike as well as how to install a new tube into your wheel. The tools I'm going to be using today are going to vary depending on your bike. The ones I'm using are going to be some little side cutters to help free up some cable space and give me a little bit more slack to work with. A good set of tire levers. We have our wrenches here for our bolt-on back wheel. If you don't know what size of nut your axle uses, an adjustable wrench is a great tool. The one I'm using today is going to be an 18 millimeter and also a 10 millimeter wrench. And then also a good set of hex keys as well will be useful. So I already have my bike staged here. A few things of note before you turn your bike upside down that you'll want to take care of is rotating any of your controls up here so that they won't be damaged if they're sitting on the ground. You can see we rotated our screen back. Nothing is sitting on the ground that will be damaged by the weight of the bike. Also, another thing that will be very helpful in removing the rear wheel is to make sure that you're shifted down into your smallest gear here in the back. That makes the chain have a lot less tension on it and it's a lot easier to pull your wheel out. So we'll start with the rear wheel of the bike. I like to cut a few of the zip ties using those side cutters for my motor cable. Be careful not to cut anything else that will damage the electronics of your bike. This will give me a little bit more room to move around and have a little bit of slack in that cable to make removing the wheel easier. We're going to unplug our motor cable here. Just tuck this off to the side. Now we're going to loosen our 18 millimeter axle nut here. Give this a few good turns until we are able to free spin it with our hands. And we'll take this side completely off because we'll need to slide our little derailleur protector and washer out from over that as well. And then we'll do the same for the other side of our bike. Give our axle nut a few good turns until we're able to free spin it with our hand. And we can leave this one very slightly threaded on the side. A thing of importance to note before taking off your rear wheel is the order that the hardware goes in on here. So we can see we have our axle nut, our washer, and then our derailleur protector on the outside of the frame. And on the inside, we'll have a few more pieces of hardware that will become more visible after I pull the wheel out. If it's particularly difficult, you can use a 10 millimeter wrench to kind of jiggle the axle as you're trying to pull it out. And now here are the other pieces of hardware I was mentioning. We have our no-turn washer in there as well as another spacer behind it. While pulling this out, I noted that the edged side of my washer was pointing down or through the axle of the bike, and that's how I'm going to reinstall it as well. Set this aside for now and move on to our front wheel. So our front wheel, most commonly, we have our quick release on most of our bikes. We have our lever here near the brake rotor. So to remove it, we're going to pull this away from our rotor, freeing up a little bit of space, perhaps give a few more turns on the other side of our quick release, which will allow me to pull this wheel right out of the frame. And now we'll get on to swapping out a tube. I'm going to grab my tire levers here. Having two of them is a good way to make this process very easy. We'll want to make sure our tube inside is deflated. Not a problem if you have a flat, but if you're just looking to swap tires, you can deflate the tube by pulling off the little valve cap here and then inserting a very small tool inside and depressing the valve here to let out some air. After we've made sure our tube is deflated, we'll get one of our tire levers. We'll pinch the tire, giving us some access to the inside. Slide our lever under and pull the bead up and over. At this point, we'll try to rotate around the tire, pulling the bead out. This one's fairly easy to do. We'll go all the way around the tire. We only need to do this on one side. This will make installing the new tube easier. Now we have a little bit more room to work to pull the valve stem out of the wheel. And get that up and over the rim. and pull out our old tube. Next, if you're installing a new tube into your tire, something that may be helpful is to hook it up to your floor pump and put a few pumps of air into your tube, as this will help it get its form, kind of bring it into the shape that we're going to need to be working with to install it properly into the tire so that nothing gets folded over, pinched, and cause some complications down the line. We'll go back to our wheel, find where our valve hole is, and we'll start by inserting our valve stem into this hole, and then pulling the bead of the tire up and over the tube, and then begin working our way around the tire, inserting the tube into it. Next, we'll start to seat our bead of the tire into the wheel. We can just use our hands here to push it up and over, and then begin working around the tire. And if we get to the end here and it's a little bit tricky to get the last bit of the bead over the rim using just your hands, you can go back to your tire lever here. We'll turn it so that the hooked side is going to be against our rim. And then we can hook around the rim, flip the bead up and over, and insert the rest of it in the wheel. Now we'll reinstall the wheels back into our frame. We can see here there are two distinct sides of this wheel. We have the one with the rotor, the side with the rotor, the side without. We'll make sure our side with the rotor is aligned to the side with our brake caliper here. We can loosen the nut on this side if need be to help it slide into place. Once our wheel is entirely inside of the frame, we can begin to tighten the nut on our quick release. And we will finish tightening the wheel into the frame using the lever on the other side and compressing that. If it's too difficult to compress, we've over-tightened our nut, so we can open the lever again, give it a few turns counterclockwise to take a little bit of pressure off of that, and then try to tighten it down again. A good rule of thumb is to leave an imprint of the lever on the palm of your hand after you press the lever closed. This will ensure that your axle is tight enough inside of your frame. And then we will air up our tire again. If you have any questions about the PSI to inflate your tire to, normally you'll be able to see on the sidewall of the tire what is recommended to inflate to. This one here recommends between 30 to 65 PSI. I usually like to go in the middle, so I go about 40, 45 on that. Now we'll reinstall our rear wheel. Again, we'll make sure that our rotor side is aligned with the caliper, the brake caliper of the bike. This one is going to be a little bit more tricky as we have our drive line back here. So we can start by lifting the chain up and over, kind of resting it on our small gears here. With our derailleur out of the way, we try to slide the wheel back into the frame. And this is where it's important to note that hardware you'd mentioned earlier, putting it back in the same orientation that it was in when we took it out. We'll slide that no-turn washer over the side, and we'll let gravity do most of the work here. We can press down slightly on our tire. I'll get my 10mm wrench that I had mentioned earlier, jiggle around my axle a little bit, letting the wheel drop into place. Once we think the wheel is in place, we can give this a few more turns. This will make sure that our wheel is entirely seated inside our frame. And now we'll begin putting our hardware back on. Slide my derailleur protector up and over the derailleur. Next up, my washer, then my axle nut. And I'll start to thread this on as much as I can do with my fingers. This will make it a lot easier to tighten at the end. And then we'll do the same for the other side of the bike as well. It's very important to make sure our axle is inserted all the way into the frame. We do not want any air gaps between our axle and the frame. I'll begin to tighten this as well. And now I'll finish tightening up with my 18mm wrench. You'll want to make sure these nuts are on very tight, as they are what hold your motor into the bike and can lead to damages if they're not on tight enough. Next, I'll reinstall my plastic cap over the axle nut. Feed my motor cable down through the derailleur protector and re-plug it in, making sure that my arrow on this side is aligned with my arrow on the other side of the connector. And then we can reinstall the zip tie that we cut earlier to hold our cable in place. And that is how you remove your front and rear wheels on your electric bike. If you have any questions about how to remove the wheels from your e-bike, visit your local Magnum dealer or feel free to visit us at magnumbikes.com or reach out to our customer support team. Thank you all for watching today. Be sure to like and subscribe to see more content about our bikes. We'll see you all next time.